The sun bled gold across the cracked earth of the double-barred ranch, painting long shadows that stretched like fingers toward the horizon. Maria stood on the sagging porch of the bunkhouse, one hand pressed to her belly, the other clutching a crumpled letter. The wind carried the scent of sage and horse sweat, and in her throat lodged the words she had rehearsed 100 times on the dusty road from town. She was 22, alone, and the child inside her was a secret she could no longer keep. Old Man Harlan, everyone called him that, though no one knew his age, emerged from the barn, his boots kicking up puffs of red dust. His face was a map of hard years, crops fit etched deep, a jaw like weathered oak. He stopped when he saw her, the pitchfork in his gnarled hands forgotten. Maria's knees buckled. The words spilled out before courage failed her. Estoy embarazada, her voice cracked like thin ice. I'm pregnant. Harlan's eyes, pale blue and sharp as winter sky, widened. The pitchfork clattered to the ground. Horror flickered across his features, raw, unguarded, the kind that strips a man bare. Maria saw it and felt the world tilt. She had expected anger, maybe pity, but not this visceral dread that made the old rancher look suddenly small. He took a step back, boot heel grinding into the dirt. Who? The single word rasped out, rough as barbed wire. Maria's chin lifted, though tears blurred her vision. Doente matter. Es gone. Said the baby would ruin his rodeo dreams. She laughed, a brittle sound that died in the dry air. Left me with $20 and a bus ticket I never used. Harlan's gaze dropped to her stomach, still flat beneath the faded denim shirt. His hands opened and closed at his sides, as if grasping for something lost long ago. Maria braced for the dismissal. She was just a seasonal cook, hired to feed the hands through calving season. She had no claim here. But Harlan did the unthinkable. He turned on his heel and walked away, shoulders hunched like a man carrying a coffin. Maria stood rooted until the sun dipped lower and the shadows swallowed her whole. She packed her duffel that night, fingers trembling over the few belongings that were hers, a photograph of her abuela, a rosary, the letter from the clinic confirming what her body already knew. By dawn, she would be gone, hitching toward anywhere that wasn't here. She was zipping the bag when Knuckles rapped on the bunkhouse door. Harlan stood there, hat in hand, silver hair wild from the wind. Behind him, the ranch yard was lit by lantern and starlight. His voice, when it came, was low and unsteady. Come with me. Maria hesitated, but something in his eyes, grief, maybe, or recognition, pulled her forward. He led her past the corrals, past the sleeping horses, to the old foreman's cabin no one had used since Harlan's son died in Afghanistan. The door creaked open to reveal fresh sheets on the bed, a cradle in the corner. Hand-carved, sanded smooth, the wood still smelling of pine. Maria's breath caught. Señor Harlan. Ain't your señor, he muttered, but there was no bite in it. Place has been empty 15 years. Might as well be useful. She stepped inside, fingers tracing the cradle's curves. Why? Harlan looked out the window, jaw working. Because I know what it's like to lose everything in one breath. His voice dropped to a whisper. My Ellie, she was pregnant when the fever took her. Doc said the baby didn't they make it either. He buried them both under the cottonwood by the creek. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. The horror on his face earlier, it hadn't been for her. It had been memory, sharp as a spur. I walked away from you today, he continued, because I was scared. Scared of opening that grave again. But then I thought, what if someone had walked away from Ellie? What if she'd been alone? He met Maria's eyes, and for the first time, the old rancher looked breakable. I ain't got much, but I got this ranch. And I got room. Tears slipped down Maria's cheeks, hot and silent. She wanted to say thank you, but the words tangled. Instead, she crossed the small room and wrapped her arms around the old man's rigid frame. Harlan stiffened, then slowly, awkwardly, hugged her back. His shirt smelled of hay and coffee and something indefinably safe. The weeks that followed were a quiet revolution. Maria moved into the cabin, her belly rounding like the moon. Harlan knocked every morning with a tin of oatmeal and a gruff reminder to eat. He taught her to mend fences, his hands guiding hers over splintered cedar. She taught him to make tamales, laughing when masa stuck to his beard. The ranch hands, rough men with calloused hearts, watched in stunned silence as the old man who they once run off drifters with a shotgun now carried crates of prenatal vitamins like they were gold. But beneath the surface, tension called. The ranch teetered on foreclosure, the bank's letters piled up like autumn leaves. Harlan hadn't told Maria the full truth, he was one missed payment from losing the only home they ever known. Breathing kept him silent, but sleepless nights carved deeper hollows under his eyes. One October evening, storm clouds bruised the sky. Maria, heavy with child, found Harlan in the barn, staring at a foreclosure notice. Rain hammered the tin roof. "We'll figure it out," she said, though fear not her insides. Harlan shook his head. "Ain't no figuring. Land's been in my family since Texas was Mexico. I let it slip through my fingers." His voice broke. "Just like I let Ellie slip." Maria took the paper from his trembling hands. "You didn't let her slip. Sickness took her. And this," she gestured at the notice, "this is just paper. We fight paper." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw not the frightened girl from the porch but a woman with fire in her veins. Something shifted in his chest, a crack letting light into a room long dark. The next day, Harlan did the second unthinkable thing. He called a meeting in the bunkhouse. Every neighbor within 50 miles crammed inside. Maria stood beside him, 8 months pregnant, her hand on the small of her back. "I'm selling the north pasture," Harlan announced. Gasps rippled through the room. That pasture was prime grazing, the heart of the ranch's cattle operation. "Proceeds pay the bank. The rest," he glanced at Maria, "goes to a trust. For the baby. College, doctors, whatever she needs." A grizzled cowboy named Zeke spat tobacco juice. "You're crazier than a wet hen, Harlan. That land's your legacy. Our land has found Maria's. Legacy ain't dirt. It's what you leave in people." The room fell silent. Then Zeke stood, hat in hand. "Ella match whatever you raise. My boys deployed, got hazard pay burning a hole. One by one, others followed. Widows brought jam money. The feed store owner forgave our land's tab. Even the banker, shamed by the turnout, offered a grace period. Maria's due date arrived with the first frost. Labor came fast and fierce in the foreman's cabin, the midwife's truck stuck in mud. Harlan boiled water, his hands shaking worse than hers. Between contractions, Maria gripped his sleeve. "Promise me," she gasped, "if something happens." "Nothing's happening," he growled, but his eyes were wet. The baby's cry split the night, a fierce, indignant sound that silenced the storm. Harlan cut the cord with his pocket knife, sterilized in whiskey, and wrapped the infant in his own flannel shirt. A girl, tiny and perfect, with Maria's dark hair and Harlan's stubborn chin. They named her Esperanza, Ope, because that was what she was. Winter softened into spring. The north pasture sold, but the ranch endured, leaner but alive. Esperanza learned to walk in the barn aisle, chasing kittens while Harlan followed with outstretched arms. Maria enrolled in online nursing courses, her laptop balanced on the cradle. The trust fund grew, seeded by community and love. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in Egi's favorite colors, Harlan sat on the porch with Esperanza on his knee. She babbled, pointing at the cottonwood where 2 names were carved, Ellie and Baby. Harlan traced the letters with a calloused finger. "Your grandma's watching," he told the child. "She'd be proud." Maria joined them, lemonade sweating in her hand. Bank called. Final payments made. We're free and clear. Harlan nodded, but his eyes were on the horizon where new calves gambled. Free ain't the word. We're bound, by choice, not blood. That's stronger. Esperanza reached for Maria, then for Harlan, linking them in a chain no foreclosure could break. The old rancher, once horrified by the trembling girl on his porch, now held the future in his lap and felt, for the first time in decades, whole. Years later, when Esperanza graduated nursing school, summa cum laude, her abuela's rosary tucked in her pocket, she returned to the Double Bar Ranch. The sign at the gate had changed. Double Bar and Esperanza Ese Hope, a non-profit clinic for migrant workers, funded by the trust and Harlan's relentless fundraising. The old man, stooped but smiling, cut the ribbon with the same pocket knife. Maria, gray threading her braids, watched her daughter hug the grandfather who'd chosen her when biology hadn't. Esperanza knelt by the cottonwood, adding a third name beneath the first two, Esperanza, beloved. Under that tree, Harlan told the story to anyone who'd listen, how a frightened girl's confession cracked open a heart long sealed, how horror became hope, how one unthinkable act of welcome saved not just a baby, but a man, a ranch, a community. And every time he finished, they'd look at the sky and whisper, "We did right by you, Ella." The wind carried his words across the golden fields, where kindness, once a seed trembling in Maria's voice, had grown into a forest no storm could uproot.